Ain't nobody got time for that.
What's up, guys? Your boy Benny. We run a political channel here, so we often find ourselves covering weirdos and criminals and scumbags and proper pieces of human garbage. And so it is with prayerful consideration and extreme authority that we can say that Joe Biden is an absolute piece of human scum. Joe Biden is a garbage human being and is an awful man. Joe Biden has proven this time and time again. Here's a great example. Here's Joe Biden looking at his watch whilst the bodies of Americans who he ordered to their deaths in Afghanistan roll off the plane. This is Joe Biden not caring about anyone else's children. Of course, their families were sitting there. You can see here in this clip, 1, 2, 3. There's Joe Biden checking his watch saying, this isn't important to me. Joe Biden doesn't care about other people's kids. He doesn't even care about his own kids. Joe Biden didn't acknowledge his biological granddaughter because he was embarrassed about her existence. This is Hunter Biden's out-of-wedlock daughter with a stripper. Interesting that. New York Times had to rebuke Biden's cold heart for denying the existence of his granddaughter. It's 7 grandkids, Mr. President. Only after a scolding from the New York Times did Joe Biden decide to acknowledge that his 7th granddaughter lives. What a complete, truly horrible person. Joe Biden used the death of his wife in a tragic car accident to take his sons who were laying in hospital beds and give a political speech from the hospital with his sons as props in the hospital bed. There's literally photos of it. So anyway, it's well established, but Joe Biden is a repulsive human being. And so it is in times like this that we are particularly struck by the question, what won't Joe Biden do? There are 3 Americans, service members, who lost their lives this weekend in an attack at an American base in Jordan. The parents of those Americans got a call from Joe Biden, wherein Joe Biden lied about the death of his son. Now, I want to set this up. Joe Biden has often lied about the death of his son, Beau, who did serve in the military, but did not die in Iraq.
No change in the quality of it, just change in the price. And they talk about inflation. You know, we're dealing with it for a whole second. Inflation is a worldwide problem right now because of a war in Iraq and the impact on oil and what Russia's doing. The war in Ukraine. And thinking of Iraq because that's where my son died.
That's not where your son died. Your son died when he was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. He wore a suit to work every day, 10 years after he left the military. That's where your son died. We're not saying it's not a tragedy. We're saying it's an ongoing tragedy that you continue to lie about your son's death. Joe Biden, of course, who voted for the war in Iraq and was its biggest proponent, continues to lie about his son's death. Of course, Joe Biden is prone to the occasional gaffe. He has dementia.
Just imagine, I mean it sincerely. I say this as a father of a man who won the Bronze Star, the Conspicuous Service Medal, and lost his life in Iraq.
Your son didn't die in Iraq. Your son died of a brain tumor. I'm not saying it's not a tragedy. I have a son. I would hate to lose my son to any tragedy, to anything. But to lie about your son's death again and again and again for political gain is a truly reptilian, cold-hearted, bastardly thing to do. Now, to lie to Gold Star parents about your son, that's just a different level. Joe Biden called Gold Star parents who lost their children in a drone attack in Jordan. These children, here they are right there, died because Joe Biden has destabilized the Middle East and Joe Biden has created a much less safe world. Joe Biden is a horrible person. The 3 service members were killed and 34 were injured, with the 8 required to be transported to another location after attacks on their base in Jordan. Biden called the parents of this woman right here and then lied to them as they were sobbing. Get a load of this.
President Biden calling Oneida and Sean Sanders, whose 24-year-old daughter Kennedy was killed in the attack.
I know, everybody, I know there's nothing anybody can say or do to ease the pain. I've been there.
Yes, sir, we understand.
The parents overcome with emotion when the president reveals how their daughter will be honored.
We're promoting her posthumously to sergeant.
Oh, wow, that is the best news I've heard today. Thank you so much. You don't know how much that means to us.
Oh.
It's hard to hear what Joe Biden actually says because he slurs his words and he doesn't have the strength to speak. But you can see here in the translation, my son spent a year in Iraq. That's how I lost him. There is Joe Biden lying to this family. Oh, and by the way, they say that like this family was overcome with emotion talking to Joe Biden. Does this sound like being overcome with emotion to you?
I know there's nothing anybody can say or do to ease the pain. I've been there.
Yes, sir, we understand.
That does not sound like overcome with emotion. Yes, sir, we understand. Like that, no. No. And by the way, isn't it interesting how Joe Biden just talked about himself the whole time? It's me, my pain, my son. Let me talk about my kid dying and lie about it to you. This is something that Joe Biden has done again and again and again, in fact. If you listen to some of the tales of the surviving service members who lost their comrades in Afghanistan after the unbelievably botched and suicidal withdrawal of our troops there, you'll find that they have this exact same story to tell about Joe Biden. How Joe Biden just wouldn't look them in the eye, effectively just said, "What do you want?" and talked about his own family the whole time. Talked about his own kids and then lied to them. It's despicable. Check this out.
I was like, oh my God. And that's what I said. And the Secret Service dude just like beat red, like trying not to laugh. And I was like, and this dude, like 2 minutes later, he walks in with him and Jill Biden and their little entourage of people and like a photographer. And right away, like remember him coming up to me, trying to shake my hand, like try to shake my right hand. And I look at him and I'm like, I don't have an arm. And my left arm is in this big ass cast with this giant orange foam block around it. I completely immobile. All I can do is move my head. My arm's gone. I'm like, I don't have an arm. And he says, oh, and like kind of stands up and then like goes over to reach for my fingers because about an inch of my fingers are showing, and just like grabs my fingers. Doesn't greet me or anything. Just that's what happened. Just grab my fingers. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And, you know, almost immediately starts talking like about how their son served in the military. Doesn't say anything about what happened. Starts talking about how their son served in the military. And my mom is just like, she's furious at this point. And they're like taking pictures and stuff. And she was like, my mom said this, she was like, I don't give a f***. I don't care what you guys f***ing do. She's like, you better take care of him for the rest of his f***ing life. And like she said that. And I'm sitting there and he comes over to me and he leans over me. I have a picture of this to prove it. I'll show you this picture that I have. It's a pretty funny picture. He leans over me and he's like this close to my face and he's like, what do you want? And I said,
what do you want?
Yeah, he said, what do you want? And I said, what? He said, what do you want? And I'm just like confused. I just got blown up. I just saw my friends die next to me. I'm like, I just want to be myself. And he's like, huh? And my mom's furious. And she's like, he said he just wants to be himself. He just wants to be him. He said he just wants to be me. And he goes, oh, okay. And they just continue to talk about everything but what just happened. And then they just ushered him out of the room. He didn't know what to say. They ushered him out of the room, and that was that.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl Rex. I am the mother of Lance Corporal Dylan Merilla. I want to thank Congressman Issa and all the dignitaries that are present today so that I may have this opportunity to speak publicly for the first time since the botched and chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, which took the life of my son and 12 other service members, 170 Afghan civilians, and left hundreds wounded. I am seeking answers to my many questions that have gone unanswered since August 26, 2021. Dylan was on his first deployment to Jordan when the withdrawal from Afghanistan began. That quickly turned into an evacuation of our Afghan allies and civilians, when he and his battalion were then redirected to assist in this process. My son was only 20 years old. It begins with the moment when I saw 2 uniformed Marines awaiting my arrival to inform me that my son had been identified as one of the 13 service members that had been killed at Abbey Gate during Operation Freedom Sentinel, also known as Operation Enduring Freedom. I was told to pack an overnight bag and be ready to go to Delaware for a dignified transfer to receive my son's body. Myself and the other families of our 13 were awaiting for the plane arrival to the United States. When Joe Biden, our elected president, entered the room, when he approached me, his words to me were, my wife Jill and I know how you feel. We lost our son as well and brought him home in a flag-draped coffin. My heart started beating faster, and I started shaking, knowing that their son died from cancer and they were able to be by his side. Also wondering how someone could honestly...
Shameful. Where's our press? What, like, where are the reporters asking, like, why do you keep lying about your son to Gold Star families? Shameful how Biden keeps lying about his son dying in Iraq, particularly when he lies to Gold Star parents. Here's an authoritative list of Joe Biden lies that he has told as president. Biden claims his son was killed in Iraq. Contrary to Biden's claim, Beau did not die while serving in Iraq. The president's oldest son passed away at the age of 46 due to complications with brain cancer. Not the first time that Biden has lied to Gold Star families about how Beau perished. What kind of a sick, degenerate hat do you have to be to do this? I mean, I just don't really know. I just don't really know the level of depravity that must be in your soul to do things like this. One of the families who was there that day during that Gold Star, during that transfer, dignified transfer is what they're called. They happen at Dover Air Force Base. The coffins with the American flags draped across them. It's actually a very hollowed procedure. One of the fathers spoke up about what he saw with Joe Biden that day. I think it's worth remembering, especially as we head into an election cycle that may see this man reelected. God forbid. Go.
I'd like to know, when I saw Biden look at his watch, I was literally like, you got to be kidding me. Because all of this to me was preventable. Because we saw them on the march. You know, we had April, May, June, July to extradite everybody and our equipment. We didn't do it. There's no excuse to me for this. Why did you choose not to meet with the president, Darren?
For exactly the reasons you just gave. We said absolutely not. We didn't want to deal with him. We didn't want him anywhere near us. We as a family decided that that was the way it was going to be. In reference to the checking of his watch, that didn't happen just once. That happened on every single one that came out of that airplane. It happened on every single one of them. They would release the salute, and he looked down at his watch. On every last one, all 13, he looked down at his watch. And as a father, you know, seeing that and the disrespect and hearing from his former leaders, one of his master sergeants said exactly what you just said, that this was avoidable, that they left them over there. They had them over there and let them down. And that we can't have that. It can't happen ever again.
We also abandoned Americans. Americans now are on their own. We left them behind. Mark,
Yep.
You want to comment on the watch incident? Did you notice the same thing?
Yes, I did. I actually leaned into my son's mother's ear and I said, I swear to God, if he checks his watch one more time, and that was only probably 4 times in, I couldn't look at him anymore after that. Just considering especially the time and why we were there, it was I found to be the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, for the love of God, if you vote in 2024, and I encourage you to do so, please vote that person. Like, you have a moral obligation to vote the guy who would do that to our service members and their families, who would disrespect them in such a manner. You have an obligation to vote them out of office. Like, it's like our moral obligation. You don't have to like Trump, but you should deeply dislike Joe Biden. And that alone should be enough. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe, and respect our service members. Pray for them and their families. They need it right now. See ya.